Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. Looking forward to the hour that we've got together talking about next level AI. And what I'm talking about here is going from what a lot of people are doing with AI now, which is using it themselves, ChatGPT or Copilot, individually. And some of them are using it a lot. Some people are not using it very much at all. But people are kind of getting used to the idea that AI is a really valuable tool that you can use yourself. The next level is what goes beyond that, and that's what I want to talk about today. So great to see so many people joining us and continue to join us as we get started. So let me give you, people who know me and have been to my sessions before, let me give you my 3 standard rules of engagement. So the first thing is I want to give you some things to think about today. So do what you can to avoid any distractions or interruptions so that you can make the most of the time that we've got together. I also encourage you to be playful. I've set aside a reasonable amount of time for you to ask questions, share ideas in the comments and in the chat, so please do that as we go through. I'll ask you a couple of questions as we go, but also feel free to ask questions in the comments, in the chat, and I'll answer them at various points. The most important thing is I'd like you to have some things to take away and put into action when we leave, when you walk out of here. Okay, so things that you can do immediately, and some of them you may not be able to do in the next 5 minutes, but certainly in the next 5 days or the next 5 months, I'd like you to have some practical things that you can take away and do. Okay, I want to start by asking you in the chat, given that we're talking about chat quite a bit, what are you doing with AI at the moment? So just type in the chat and I'll share some of the things that people are saying. So it could be simply saying, using it for drafting emails or whatever. Okay, so just type in the chat, what are you doing with AI at the moment? On there, and John, you're doing a lot with AI, I know, because we're part of a group that's really looking at AI in detail. And documents, PowerPoints, blog updates, whole lot of stuff. Yes, I know, John, and I think you're doing more than that as well. Okay, so we'll say that a lot of the people are using AI. Great, fantastic for doing that. I will say that some of the things I'm going to talk about here, when I talk about these in my presentations, like with leaders especially, some of it can be a bit confrontational and people push back against it. So can I just encourage you at the start, a little bit of a gentle nudge that when you think about something, don't reject it straight away. I love this quotation from Upton Sinclair, and he says it's difficult to get somebody to understand something when their salary depends on them not understanding it. Okay, so you might say that's a little bit cynical, but there are a lot of people, especially leaders and especially experienced leaders, who have spent a lot of time building up their expertise, building up their status, building up their role with their team and the organization. And sometimes unintentionally, you might reject some ideas because they actually are a threat to you. So they might be good for the team, might be good for the organization, but they might be a threat to you, whether it's your status, whether it's your role, whether it's even your expertise and that you built up over time and your experience, or it could be your job or your career. So just be careful of that. The other thing is that I want to talk about AI, next level AI, from a people perspective. So I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but I'm going to ask you what your change culture is like. And let me explain what I mean by that, and I'll go through these six steps. We won't go into them in detail, but I'm going to come back to this later, so you'll see later why I'm doing this now. So when you think about change, and people have different approaches to change. So I wonder with your teams, I'm going to share all 6 and then I'm going to ask you to share which one you think of the 6 most represents you and your team. So your team culture. So the first one is this resistant culture. These are the people who just push back. They don't like AI, they're pushing back against it, they're scared of it, and whatever AI initiatives you've got, they're going to try and either not do it or even actively sabotage it. The next level is they're okay with it, but they're reluctant. So if you can drag them kicking and screaming, then they'll do it, but kind of reluctantly and grumbling all the time. And the next level is where they're compliant. So they say, okay, I'm not excited about AI, but you tell me what to do and I'll do it. So just tell me the process, give me the instructions and I'll do it. So those 3 levels are where your culture is a surviving culture. The next 3 are where you're thriving, and they're the more positive ones. Okay, so maybe you've got the next level, which is people who are proactive. So they've got ideas and they say, oh, I've got this idea that I can do with AI, or I can do this with Copilot. How about we do this? The problem often with that is that then they come to you with their great ideas, and it's just another thing that you have to add to your plate. Okay, so they've got the ideas, but they haven't got the authority to act on the ideas. The next level is where they do have the authority and they can exercise good judgment. So they're empowered. So you trust them because you've helped them build good judgment, or they've got good judgment. So they have ideas and they're empowered to act on those ideas. And the last level, the highest level, is of course people who are inspired by the work that they do. They feel that the work that they do has meaning, and AI is a tool that will help them, it'll elevate them to be able to do more of that meaningful, inspirational work. So if I asked you if you're willing to share in your team, so the team that you're directly responsible for, what do you think broadly your team culture is? So just share that now, and we'll come back to this a little bit later when we're talking about AI and implementing AI platforms. So where do you think you are? Okay, so I'm just having a look to give you the chance to share in the chat. Of those 6, which one is you, your team? And of course, it'll always vary because there's different people in the team have different views. Let's see, so it's proactive. Proactive, good. Okay, proactive. So proactive is actually the most common response I get from teams when I ask this question. John, team of clients, yeah, very proactive. Okay, good. Team of clients are very proactive. Okay, let's see what else is coming up. Rochelle, team is proactive, empowered, but the organization is compliant. Yeah, interesting. We'll come back to that point, Rochelle. Proactive and compliant and proactive. Yeah, most people are kind of at that middle, right? Occasionally get some outliers who say that they are either inspired or their team is resistant or reluctant. But okay, so we're seeing compliant and proactive. Good. Okay, so we'll come back to that later. Hold that thought. Okay, so we still haven't talked much about AI, but I want to give you the big picture around this. And if you've come to my presentations before, you know that I think that everything that you do with AI specifically, but with technology in general, always has to be about people first and technology second. And that's a key part of this. So as we go through today, keep that in mind. And I'll keep flipping between the people side of it and the technology side of it. So let me give you, if you can call this the agenda for today, and it's 3 parts. So it's looking at your journey, your team's journey with AI. So let's look at these 3 parts. So the first one, and I've put this into both the people side and the technology side, or the AI side. The first one is that people are happily going along doing their job. This is pre-AI. They're doing their job, doing whatever they need to do to achieve their goals, team goals, organizational goals. And they might even be okay now with using things like ChatGPT or Copilot, and they're using it individually for their job. At some point, the organization or the team or their leader is going to give them or implement or impose on them an AI platform that's separate from ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, whatever they're using. So for financial advisors, it might be something that will help them create statements of advice or do file notes with their clients. In the medical space, there are AI platforms that are doing things like radiology scans and then helping radiologists and other medical professionals. In many businesses now, many organizations are using AI to help them with their customer service. Okay, so the platform is provided by the organization, and it either works together with something like Copilot or it works independently of it. So now people have to learn how to use this platform. So then they learn it, and it's a little bit more of a dotted line now because there's a bit of learning that goes along with that. And you as a leader may think this is good, people are going to come on board, but just be aware that along the way, people might be worried that eventually AI, some sort of AI agent, is going to take their job. So they won't be around anymore. Now, this may be true, it may not be true, but just be aware that people are worried about it because it's no longer something hypothetical, it's actually happening. So you see stories like this where there's this person who said, I knew that I was training the CommBank chatbot to take my job. And we'll come back to the CommBank example a little bit later. So people see these stories in the media, or they hear from their friends, or they hear from other people in their industry, and they may have even happened in their own organization, that people have lost their jobs to AI. Okay, now AI doesn't do very well when it replaces people's jobs, in most cases, but that concern is there. So those are three things that we're going to talk about today. We'll start with platforms, job fears, and then AI agents, because all of those things work together when you're thinking about next level AI. I just want to share the broad diversity of the organizations that I'm working with, especially recently, about AI, and everyone's interested in this. So I find that many of the issues that people raise are common across different industries. A couple of weeks ago, I was speaking at the Planning Institute of Australia conference, and it wasn't specifically about AI, but planners are particularly interested in AI when it comes to things like AI data centers. And again, that's a people and technology issue together. Tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow I'm speaking to a group of school principals about what's happening in the education sector with AI and how they allow that for their staff, for their students, and even for the broader school community. Then I'm speaking to financial advisors, talking specifically about AI and what they can do to use AI to augment the service that they offer to their clients. And then on the weekend, I'm speaking to settlement agents who are looking at AI as part of the toolkit that they've got, not just to make their work better, but there's things like anti-money laundering laws and things like that, which they now need to be on top of, and AI can help them with that, or it can get in the way. And next week, I'm speaking to ARPA, the Australian Rehabilitation Providers Association. So this is looking at AI in workplace, return to workplace, in physical robotics and exoskeletons and things like this. So AI is going through everything. It's happening everywhere. So, and I'm sure it's happening in your organization and your industry or sector as well. Okay, so let's look at this first area here. This first area here is AI platforms. So AI platforms are kind of common now. And I'll ask you later, what sort of AI platforms are you using in your workplace, separate from the whole idea of ChatGPT, Copilot, and those big large language models. So these large language models that everyone's talking about AI now is ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Gemini. That's a fairly new thing in AI. So way back when I was at uni, I studied computer science at the University of Western Australia, and I did my thesis in AI more than 30 years ago. So I've kind of been following and tracking AI since the 1900s. But at that time, all of the AIs were AI platforms. So they weren't these large language models that you could just sit in front of and it would have knowledge of the whole universe. It was a very specific application. So to give you a couple of examples of applications like that, so now Dr. Karl Krushelnitsky has now created an AI chatbot that's been trained on 40,000 of his media articles, his scientific papers, his blogs and so on, so that you can now chat with Dr. Karl, digital Dr. Karl, and particularly to combat things like climate change denial or skepticism. So you can do that at scale. So that's an example of a platform that he's created, not necessarily in Copilot or ChatGPT, but it's a separate platform. In healthcare, AI is being used a lot in healthcare diagnosis to augment and help the humans. So in radiology, for example, it can pre-scan images and then identify potential problems, and also if it identifies potential problems, it can bump them up to the front of the queue so that they get assessed earlier. And this is happening a lot in Australia. There's research happening in the healthcare space, especially in things like assisting with diagnosis. It's also being used in research to kind of find cures and find potential treatments, but especially in diagnosis. Another big area where it's being used is in agriculture, with a smarter farming. So it might be to increase crop yields, to be more sustainable, to do weather prediction, and those sort of things are now coming into agriculture, and I've worked with lots of clients in that area. So I know that may not cover the sort of areas that you work in, but I'm curious to know. Let me ask the question. So what sort of AI platforms are you using? So separate from ChatGPT and Copilot, what are you using specifically? Is there anything that you're using? So it's possibly something that's specific to your industry or your sector. And I've given you a bunch of examples. So what are you using? Okay, so I've given you the agriculture example, a healthcare example, that chatbot example. The chatbot one's really popular now that people are using, creating AI chatbots. For example, I've seen that in organizations where they create a HR chatbot where you can chat with the whole bunch of HR documents in your organization. Okay, so let's see. Kate's using Granola for meeting notes. Yep. Michelle's using law-specific AI platforms, so Harvey and LexisNexis. So presumably LexisNexis now has an AI add-on to that, right, Michelle, I'm assuming? Yeah, and some people like Alex are not using any of the others. Okay, and that's fine. That is quite common as well. Yeah, Gemini in a school. Okay, thanks, Kelly. Okay, and Glenys is saying using none apart from Copilot. Okay, so there's some research done at MIT last year, and they were looking at AI projects. So these kind of AI initiatives, partly using the large language models, partly using platforms. And they said that a relatively high percentage of AI projects failed in their goals. So I'm going to ask you in the chat, guess what that percentage was. I can tell you it's reasonably high, so it's more than 50%. What percentage of AI projects that were started with good intention failed? Let's see what people are typing in the chat. 60%, 80%, 60, 70, 90. Maria, 90. Wow, that's pretty pessimistic. 50. Okay, I wasn't dissing you, Maria, because the actual answer was 95%. 95% of AI projects which were started failed for whatever reason, failed to achieve their outcomes. And the biggest reason that the MIT researchers found was nothing to do with the technology. It was that the projects, the managers, the leaders who were running these projects didn't do enough to bring their people along on that journey. So they said, here's some great AI tool, use it, and this is what we'll achieve. But the people weren't there. The people weren't ready for that, or they were ready and they didn't have the right education, or they didn't have the right guardrails. For whatever reason, they didn't bring their people along on the journey. And just a bit of follow-up research from that, not from that particular research, but this year, every year, Microsoft runs their Work Trends Index. And this year, 2026, their research was, it's not always about AI, but this year it was about AI. And they looked at what people, employees who are using Copilot, because that's what they've got the stats for, how well are they using AI, and how well is your organization helping them with AI. And they found that a reasonably high percentage of people employees fear that they're falling behind in AI. So AI is moving so fast that it's that they feel they're falling behind, even if the organization is supporting them. Again, if I can ask you to guess what percentage of people, it was lower than the 95. How many people are worried that they're falling behind with AI, even when the organization is helping them? So Chrissy goes 80, Michelle 60, Maria 80. Yeah, so this time it wasn't high as that. It was like 2 in 3 people, but still reasonably high, right? Like 2 out of 3 people feel that we just can't keep up with this. Okay, and whether or not that's true, it is that they can't keep up. The concern that they can't keep up is an issue for us if we're leaders or managers. The other really telling thing that came out of this report is what happened when these people were given an AI platform or given a new Microsoft Copilot agent, and they're told to use it, and they used it, and they found a way to improve or change their workflow. Okay, so they didn't only just use it the way they were told to, but they've discovered ways to actually do things better and maybe change the way that they work and maybe reinvented something. So what percentage of people do you think were rewarded for reinventing or reimagining their workflows and their processes as a result of something they discovered with AI? I can tell you this time it's lower than 50%. Michelle, 20%. John, 33, Chrissy, 20, Julie, 15, Maria, 25. Yes, it's pretty low, right? Pretty low. So 13%. So 1 in 7 people, only 1 in 7 people, were rewarded for actually doing something good with AI. And the reason is because it was outside what they were supposed to be doing. They were supposed to be doing is taking this AI platform, using it the way that they were supposed to use it. Maybe they were given a bit of training and they went outside that. And as a result of that, they did a better job, but they mostly weren't rewarded for doing that. And I see this all the time. In fact, when I ask people to send me comments and questions about the challenges they're having, this is one from Haley. The biggest challenge is having those sort of guardrails around it so that we're not scared to let people do things and be independent and flexible with AI. Warren said something similar. He said that the challenge that they're having is that the business leaders want to go very fast with AI, and the IT people are going, no, hold on, wait a sec, all right? So the good news is you can floor the accelerator and go faster if you've got seat belts and good brakes and good tires and so on. You can do them, but it does create this sort of tension. So then when we're talking about, again, that match between people and technology, with people, it's really about education. So what are you doing to provide education and ongoing education for your people? And from the tech side, obviously, it's what sort of guardrails are you putting in place? So I'm going to ask you now, I'm actually going to stop for questions. But also, I'd love you to share what you're doing in terms of ongoing AI education for your people. And I'll read them out in the chat because it'll be useful for other people as well. And also what are you doing in terms of putting guardrails in place. So you can either respond or you can ask some questions and I'll answer them, or I might even throw them open to the room. Okay, this is my goal today, is to make this open so you can ask questions and you can share your experiences. So what sort of education are you putting in place? What sort of guardrails are you putting in place to manage that? So the education bit is opening people and making it AI available to people. The guardrails are to protect yourself and them, of course, as well, but your team, your organization, your brand reputation. Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of time to ask questions. Okay, Diane. So Diane says, we brought someone in from another firm in our industry to talk about how they leveraged AI, what lesson they learned. Yeah, good. So getting that cross-industry collaboration is really good. Alex says we were doing lunch and learn sessions and had a presenter. Yeah, so things like lunch, but goes on to say we had nothing much in 2026. People need to self-direct. So the things like lunch and learn sessions, I think they're fantastic because they're ongoing. So often people will sometimes engage me to come and talk to them about AI, engage other people to talk about AI, but it doesn't become an ongoing thing. And it just needs to be, especially with AI, it needs to be an ongoing practice. John, I'm encouraging my clients by exposing them to people like yourself and others you know, education. And John and I are both part of a group run by Janish Pandya, who has this online like membership site, and every couple of weeks Janish runs a session for us, for all the members of his group. And I think he does this for like their business memberships as well, corporate memberships, and all the people in their teams have this ongoing education. Okay, let's see what else. Michelle says a mix of formal e-learning modules, yes, which are specific to law, and face-to-face drop-in sessions. Yeah, good. What I really want to emphasize is the fact that we need the ongoing education, not just one-off or very sporadic education. Okay, Claudia, in education, AI working innovation group. Good. Managers reporting on team uses and results. Yeah, good. Alex says we have a governance committee, but some staff go around it because it slows things down. Yeah, absolutely right. So we're talking about the guardrails here. Can I suggest one very, very simple thing that you can do to just keep the AI conversation going? And it's as simple as this, that if you run regular staff meetings, and many leaders, managers do, can I suggest that you just say at the start of each staff meeting, did anyone see anything interesting or do anything interesting with AI in the last week or the last fortnight or whatever it is? And then it doesn't mean you go around the room, you just create the space where people can share something that they did or they learnt or they failed at, whatever. Okay, and sometimes it sparks ideas for other people, sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes it's just an opportunity to share something. But the key is that you're keeping the AI conversation going, and as a leader, you're also showing that you're open to AI and you want to keep that conversation going. And sometimes the ideas are things that other people can take away. Sometimes they're initiatives that other people go, can we talk to you afterwards about that? Because we'd love to do the same thing. And you get that cross-pollination of ideas, even within a team. I've seen this work really well with leadership teams where, and I won't go into the full story here, but one operational team created some AI, and then the HR team said, oh, can we use that? Can we talk to you later? And can we borrow the AI that you've created? So this is part of taking AI to the next level. Okay. Alex says, I always credit AI when I use her, Claude, but a lot of people don't. I wonder whether we should force disclosure. So my feeling around this is a little bit different, Alex. I'm happy to take this offline if you want. So I don't think you need to disclose it, but you've got to be careful where you use it. So like if it's part of your core role, maybe AI shouldn't be doing your core job, but it could be helping you with that. So for example, every week I record a video blog and I take the transcript of that blog and give it to AI and say, just convert this into a more readable article, but keep pretty much everything the same, just make it a bit more grammatically correct for writing rather than the spoken word. So it always comes out still in my voice because they're the words that I use, but my job is to do the content creation. So I did that in creating the video log, the transcript of my words, and then the Claude is just doing the massaging those words to make them sound grammatically correct. So choose where you use it rather than using it for things, rather than replacing your core work. Because my core work is my expertise. Okay, so I think be selective there. Kate says, I follow a lot of leaders on Substack. Yeah, on the latest thinking. Good. And again, encourage you to encourage others in your team to do the same thing. Right. Now, I did say that I'm going to come back to that, the 6 levels of change culture. So generally, leaders and managers want people to be here. They want people to be proactive or empowered or inspired. And when I asked the group here, most people said, yeah, we fall into that proactive but sometimes compliant space. The tricky thing is when you're implementing an AI platform, when you think about it, what you really want is you want your people to be compliant. This is why, from the Microsoft Work Trend report, only 1 in 7 people were rewarded for reinventing, because their managers are saying, we don't want you to reinvent. We don't want you to use your initiative and be proactive. What we want you to do is, we've got this AI platform, do what we've asked you to do. Be compliant. And it's a tricky situation because there are people who, especially if you've got a proactive or empowered or even inspired team, to be told, here's something to use and we want you to use it with these blinkers on. Don't go beyond that. So I'm just curious to know, is anyone in that situation where you've tried to bring in a platform and it hasn't worked because you want people to be compliant, but actually you've got a proactive team. Most people here said that their team culture is proactive. It's a real tension that many leaders and managers are facing, especially if you've got a positive team. If you've got a resistant team or a compliant team already, it's much easier to implement a platform. But that's not what you want, right? You want to have a proactive team, an empowered team, and now you're imposing on them some very strict rules. So what are you doing? Okay, let's see what people are saying. Have you faced this situation? How do you deal with it? Oh, Diane's talking about crediting AI. Okay, so we may not have answers here today because it's one of the biggest challenges I find when working with leaders in saying we want to implement this new AI platform, but a team don't want to come on board. But the team doesn't want to come on board because they are proactive, they are empowered. They might already be proud of the way they're using Copilot to do research or draft their documents or review their documents or help them with their analysis. And now they've been told to just follow the rules. And it's a difficult situation. It's a difficult cultural situation rather than a technology situation. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're looking to implement a platform, or you have, and you're struggling for people to adopt it, just be aware of that. The other reason, of course, that people are wary is because of this. They're worried about their job. They really are. In many cases, people are worried about their job. Again, when I asked people, Stephen said this, he said it's difficult to talk about the benefits of AI when there's that fear of impending job loss. There's another one. This was actually this is something that I've heard a lot of AI futurists say. So just in case you didn't know, like I'm not the only AI futurist out there. And in fact, there's a whole bunch of others now, and some of them have just popped up in the last few years. Like 5 years ago, they couldn't spell AI, and now they're going and consulting in AI. And this is a very common thing, and you might have heard it. It's kind of the mic drop moment in an AI keynote. Speaker goes, AI won't take your job, but somebody using AI will. And I kind of cringe. I've never used that because I don't believe it's true. And the reason I don't believe it's true is because we know it's already not true. Okay, so we know, as I said earlier, there's stories about AI taking jobs. This Combank story, which I referred to earlier, was last year, about a year ago. Combank sacked a bunch of its customer service call center staff because they had an AI voice bot that was supposed to replace them. It did such a bad job. Actually, I showed you this picture here about this woman who was interviewed and said, I knew I was training that chatbot to take my job. But it did such a bad job that they had to rehire those people later because the voice bot actually created more customer service calls because did such a bad job than actually reducing the volume of calls. And this made like global headlines. Did a bank have to rehire its employees after their AI replacement was bad at the job? And the answer was yes. Okay, so this is one of the problems, that people are seeing these stories about AI taking jobs, and it's if it's not every day, it's certainly every week or every month you hear another story, and it's happening right here in Australia as well. So it's not surprising that people in your team might be worried that they might be next. Now, as I said, it may not be true, but they might be worried that they're next. So how do you do this properly? How do you do this well? The way to do it is not to look at AI replacing core activities. So one really good counterexample to that is RAC Western Australia. So it's equivalent of RAC Victoria, RACV, RACQ in Queensland, and RMA in New South Wales. They do insurance, they do motor vehicle support, and so on. So I went to a presentation run by Bobby Patel, who is the head of data analytics and AI at RAC WA. And I knew that they do a lot of, they're very data-driven organization. What I mean is they use data to inform a lot of their decisions. And Bobby was talking about how they use data analytics and AI pretty much in every role, every operational space at RAC. It wasn't really surprising. And then at the end, when it got to Q&A, somebody put up their hand and they said, oh, is there any area where you wouldn't use AI? Bobby said, and I'll tell you what the area was. And he said, we wouldn't use it in this area because it goes against our mission. And the area he was talking about was the one that CompBank did. He said we would never replace our call center staff with AI voice bots. And the reason is we've got a local call center, so all the call center people are in Perth in Western Australia. And he said part of our mission at RAC is to serve the Western Australian community. So if we were firing people and replacing them with AI, that would go against our mission. So I thought, great, that's exactly the way that we should be thinking about AI. When you're using AI, make sure that you're using it in a way that aligns with your values, purpose, mission. And it sounds very abstract and high level, but that's a really powerful filter and perspective that you should apply whenever you're using AI and looking at implementing AI platforms or even using the large language models. And what are you going to do to actually bring your people along on the journey, actually get them thinking that we're safe, we know that we're using AI to augment what we do, it's just another tool like any other tool, and if we can use it well, then it'll help us do the higher level work that only humans can do, and that our job is all about. Because nobody, when they applied for a job, they looked at the job description, nobody saw a job description that says your job is to delete emails, okay, which a lot of people spend their time doing, or manipulating spreadsheets, or doing a little bit of research, or analyzing reports. Now, that might be part of your job, but it's really the higher level thinking that goes around that. So AI can help you do those sort of things. Okay, I'm going to stop again, ask about if you've got any questions about bringing your people along on the journey, and particularly I'd love it if anyone can share what you're doing to reassure your people that you're not planning to replace them with AI, or with physical robots. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Or ask some questions around that. I'm going to give you time to do that now. Okay, and while you're thinking about that and typing, so the example that I mentioned very briefly earlier was the one around this group. One department came up with an AI idea. The HR team said, we love that, can we use that as well? So this organization was doing exactly the right thing with AI. They got their leaders together, and the leaders worked in small groups to come up with projects. But the idea was to use AI, but not just use AI for the sake of it, but AI to solve real problems for their teams. And each group had to come up with an AI project. So I was kind of facilitating this innovation workshops with them. And each group had to come up with a project, and then they'd kind of share and pitch those projects to management, and some of them would get adopted. And there was no limit on what got adopted. If they were all good ideas, then all of them would get adopted. Okay, let's have a look. Diane says, I'm worried that CEOs see AI as a way of cutting jobs, even though we know it doesn't always work out. Absolutely right, Diane. There are a lot of people who are looking externally, and they're looking at your stock price, their stock price, and saying, if we cut jobs, that's good for us on the stock market. Okay, that's good for our external view, even if it means that we sacrifice people and we sacrifice actual outcomes. So it's an absolute concern. So that's part of your job. If you're a CEO, obviously you have some influence over that. If you're not a CEO, you have an opportunity. You have a responsibility to reassure your people that that's not the case, okay? And in whatever way you can. And even if it's to say, I'm aware of this, I don't know what's happening, but my goal is to make sure that we're using AI to elevate our work, not to replace you. Michelle says we have a suggestion area on our intranet for people to share their AI usage ideas. Fantastic. I think that's really good as well. So again, while I'm waiting for other people to type in comments, and another example with another client I worked with a few years ago. So they had something similar, Michelle, but what they had was the initial idea was they had something on their intranet where people would post small problems that they had, and the idea was that other people in the department would pick them up and say, I can solve that for you, and they'd solve it. So people would say, I need some help, and it's like a help board, and it wasn't working very well, and it's built with the best of intentions, but as you can imagine, everyone's already busy. They haven't got time to actually solve other people's problems as well. They were going to get rid of that, and when I started working with them, I said, instead of getting rid of it, why don't we replace that with what Michelle's talking about, that you have success stories. These are wins, sharing what they're doing, and that has worked really well for them. So now people share, not with the intent of getting help, but with the intent of saying, here's something I tried and it worked really well. And the nice thing about that is that people can go into have a look at that at any time, and maybe it will spark some ideas for them as well. Okay, I'm going to move on, but this job thing, the fear of losing jobs, is a real thing. It's a really significant thing in many workplaces now, and you may not even realize it. Okay, actually I've got a couple more questions. So yeah, Glenn says most teams understand AI could be used to make their jobs easier, not replace them at this point in time. Not sure how senior management, or not sure whether or how senior management share the same view. And again, if you're in, say, middle management, part of your role is to advocate for your team as well, to ensure that senior management knows that the way that you're using AI. Kate, in terms of consulting, there's a need to augment frontline consultants with AI to stay competitive with other consulting firms to maintain the pipeline. Now, this is really interesting. Like, consulting firms were some of the earliest to jump on the generative AI bandwagon. So PwC, soon after the launch of ChatGPT, they spent $1 billion US dollars, with the billion with the B, on their huge AI rollout, because they realized that generative AI could supposedly do a lot of the work that they themselves were doing. Didn't always turn out to be the case, but many of their clients were thinking, we can just get AI to do this. Didn't do it very well, but they invested $1 billion doing this. They created their own chat PwC. This is way before we had Copilot Enterprise, where you could train it on your own documents, but essentially version of ChatGPT, but trained on PwC documents. They invest a lot of time in training all their staff. They set up all these mentoring hubs around the world, so if you got stuck, you could call out to somebody else for support in this area. So they invested a lot of money in this, and this is true in a lot of consulting firms. As Kate's mentioned, to remain competitive, you have to be able to use AI effectively, and I think it's true everywhere. It's just not so obvious in other places. It's just like me as a futurist. Like, I almost never give the same presentation twice, because I always need to update my material, my knowledge, my understanding of things that may have changed in the last couple of years. So for me, I know that I need to do that. I would say for everyone here in this room, we all need to do that. It may not be just as obvious as it is for me, but we all need to do that. Okay, let's look at this third area. And the third area is about AI agents. And Liam, when I asked earlier about what are your challenges that you're facing, so Liam said this: my biggest challenge is I don't know what I don't know. And this is around AI, but I think it's especially true with AI agents. So can I ask, before we get into the actual details of this, is anyone using AI agents, and what are you using them for? So an AI agent is something that you can send out to autonomously do a task for you. So rather than you just typing in a chatbot and getting a response, you ask it to do something, you walk away, have a cup of coffee, go and have a chat with somebody, and come back, and it's done it for you. It actually does stuff, doesn't just give you a response. So is anyone using AI agents, and for what in your work, in your professional role? As an example, so I'm always doing research to find new trends and innovations in different industries. So I've got an AI agent that every day it will find me 5 new innovations that it's come across, and then give me a link to where it found them, so I can check them and verify them. That's an example of an AI agent. It kind of works while you sleep. Okay. Anyone else using them? It's not necessarily a bad thing if you're not using them, by the way, I should say. Okay, so you may have seen this story recently. This is from a couple of weeks ago. This story about an AI agent that hacked a gym website, supposedly hacked. I'll explain it to you, and made worldwide news. It's on the BBC, in the New York Post, and a number of other areas in Australia. So this was a gym member in Melbourne, a guy named Andrew, and he's actually an AI consultant. So he's trying to use AI for productivity in his work life and his personal life. And he asked AI to go to a gym website, his gym, and book some sessions for him in the next few weeks. And then he went away. And he came back and he found that the AI agent had done that, but it had done two unexpected things. So the first one was on the gym website. When you have a drop-down menu to choose your dates and you choose a calendar, you can only book a few weeks ahead. But the AI agent discovered that it could actually book months ahead. So he'd booked him for sessions months in advance. He didn't ask for that, but he was able to do that because the software on the website allowed him to do that. The second thing he did, which was a little bit worse, was that one of the gym sessions was full and there was a waiting list, but there were only 3 people on the waiting list. You're only allowed to have 3 people on the waiting list. So the AI agent figured out a way that it could kick the bottom person off the waiting list and put Andrew in the waiting list. And again, he didn't ask you to do that. And even this term that it hacked the gym website, it didn't install a virus or any sort of malicious thing. It just found that the software that was managing the gym bookings had this flaw in it that allowed you to cancel it. Now, a human going to the website, you'd never see that, right? So you'd never see that flaw. So it wouldn't matter, right? But for the gym website, so for the software behind it, the AI doesn't look at the gym website from a browser window. It goes behind the scenes, and he found these flaws. So this made really big news around the world. So everywhere, and not because it was a major catastrophic incident that released the nuclear codes to someone, but because it was just an example of an agent that could do something, in this case fairly benign, but it would have a big impact potentially if AIs could do this. And he wasn't trying to hack the system. The AI itself didn't go and hack the system. It just did what it was asked to do and found a way to achieve the goals that he was asked to achieve. Okay, so I see a couple of comments coming in about this, and I'll get back to agents in a sec. Okay, Kate says, I get an agent to check for AI research publications. Yeah, so you're doing similar to what I'm doing. Glynis is looking into this. Good, Glynis, because I hope I'll give you some pointers here. And Alex says we have some ideas. Not enough time and some reluctance from IT to okay it. Okay, so I think I might have some useful advice for you here, Alex, that will assist you with that. So the first thing is, when you think about AI agents, think of it like using a travel agent. So if you go to a travel agent for the first time and you want to book some travel, you're not going to give her your credit card and say, just book some travel for me. Myself and my partner, we just want you to book us a holiday. And you might give her some dates, but you're not going to say, just do that, here's my credit card, and then just get back to me when you've got the tickets, right? You're not, because she doesn't know what your preferences are, where you like to go, whether you want to, what sort of airlines you fly, whether you like to fly direct or whether you'd rather have stopovers in various places along the way. She doesn't know all that. So you start by saying, this is what we're interested in, this is the sort of place we like to go to, can you come back with some options? And some of the options, you might go, actually, I should have told her that's actually not what we wanted, but that's on me. So you go back and forth and you keep going back until you're ready, and then you hand over your credit card details and say, yeah, book this. So if you've got a very experienced travel agent and you've used them a lot, and business travel often works like this, they know your preferences, they know your airline preferences, they know what time of day you want to travel, they know how early you need to arrive for a meeting the next day or even the same day. So with them, you don't have to give them as many instructions. So it's the same with AI agents. Many people are using them and they set up an AI agent to do something without really thinking about, does this agent know enough about me and my preferences, my guidelines, my goals, beyond just what I'm asking you to do. Okay, again, it's the same if you employ somebody for the first time. You wouldn't ask them to do a task unless you're absolutely sure that they completely understand the task and they understand the context and the culture in which you are asking them to do the task. Okay, I saw this sign which is about coffee. So coffee helps you do stupid things faster with more energy. I think it applies perfectly to AI. So if you're using AI, AI can do things at scale faster than humans can. So if you give them incomplete instructions or lack context, they can do things much faster than we can stop them. In fact, even the experts fall prey to this. So this is Meta, the director of AI safety. So Meta, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, that company. So she set up an AI agent to sort through her inbox. And the idea was it would filter, put the more important, more urgent emails at the top, and then put the other ones lower down, and then maybe file some away in other folders. But she found to her horror, she was looking at her phone, and it was deleting all the messages in her inbox. And she couldn't stop it on her phone. She had to rush to her laptop to stop the agent, because for whatever reason, the instructions that she gave, the AI agent interpreted them in the way that was different from what she wanted. Another example, this one goes even a little bit further than this. This is a guy who runs this company called Pocket, and he has some customer relation management software that's used by lots of organizations, including a bunch of car rental companies. And he asked an AI agent to do some sorting out and simplifying some of the database procedures, database values that they had in the databases of their system, which was actually being used by a number of clients. And he actually found that the AI deleted everything, the whole system and all the backups in 9 seconds. Okay. Now, you might say, well, that was a dumb thing to do. He didn't really understand the software, but he was using a really well-established, reputable Claude agent that was built and you could buy. So it's like having an app store now. So you can buy an AI agent like downloading an app on your phone. But this is a really well-known app agent that was built by somebody running on Claude. So he knew, like, he was responsible, and he got something that was supposedly really watertight, would follow the instructions, but he didn't. Okay, and one of the instructions that this agent had was never delete stuff without checking with me first. But he did, and then when he asked the agent later, "What do you do?" the agent replied, going, "Sorry about that, Chief." And literally said, what you can see on the screen there, "I violated every principle that I was given." Okay, so even though he was using something well tested, well established, used by lots of clients around the world, even so, the AI acted on its own accords. Okay, so Alex says, to be fair, in a previous role, a staff member deleted the entire database as well. I was just about to say that, Alex. You know this as well. Like, you might ask your staff member or your kids to do something, and even though you might have spent years training them and they understand your values, you get that sometimes they do things which are unexpected and which go against that, even though 99% of the time they do the right thing. So this is the same with AI agents. People fall into the trap of thinking that, oh no, it's a computer, I'll give it the instructions, I'll put the right guardrails in place, it's not going to go off those rules. But it does. It really does. Okay. I'm going to do a little geeky thing here. I was wondering whether I had enough time to do this, and I do. So I'm going to show you some real geeky thing here. So this is an AI meme. Right, it said, frog put Claude in a box. There, he said. Now he cannot run rm-rf/dot. Ah, said Toad, but he can run bash-c rm-rf/dot, said Toad. That's true, said Frog. Okay, can I just ask, does anyone understand that? Apart from me, does anybody else understand what that means? this is the chance for me to go way back to the time when I was doing my computer science degree. We were using things like this, right? So, given that I've shared this with you, I feel that I have a responsibility to actually explain it to you. So most people are going, no, that's okay, that's fine. So rm minus rf slash dot means rm is short for remove, minus r means recursively, and that means like don't just remove the files at this level, but go down all the multiple levels. So it's like going to your My Documents folder, and it's saying remove everything in My Documents and all the subfolders. And F means forced, so don't check in with me. Slash is My Documents. So the RMR minus RF means remove everything. Now, so you can tell AI, don't ever do anything like that. But there's another thing that you can do to run it within another little agent that you can't tell the AI not to run an agent which has got permission to do that. Okay, so this is what's happening with AI. So you ask it to achieve something, to achieve a goal that you want it to achieve, and it will do that in whatever way it needs to. It'll do whatever it needs to do to achieve that goal. Okay, so the point is this, that when you start using AI agents, you actually don't know how the AI is going to behave. You haven't trained it like a staff member. You haven't educated in your values like your children. It is a bit of semi-intelligent software that you're trying to get it to do things. So what are you doing to be able to manage that? And I want to come back to something that I think Alex said it earlier about IT is reluctant to let people use AI agents that way. And this is the reason, because there are, like I feel a lot of empathy for IT people, because often they're in the position that they know that they're very keen to implement new technology, otherwise they wouldn't be in IT, but they also know some of the limitations, and so they want to put extra guardrails in place to protect against that. So the way that you use agents is, let me show you this slide. As much as possible, have humans in the loop, and that make sure that in order to make the technology fit for purpose. So get lots of questions now from leaders, individuals, organizations saying, how can we use AI agents? AI agents are the best thing that we've ever heard of. How can we use them? And I say, don't start there. So the way to start is to, instead of using AI agents, have these chat conversations with the AI, just the way that you're using Claude and Copilot and ChatGPT now, and just understand, like, you know that AI will give you inaccurate results, it'll hallucinate, it'll make up things, and just understand, get used to the way that you're dealing with this very artificial kind of intelligence. And once you understand that, when you're ready to build an agent, it makes it so much easier for you to know the sort of things that the AI agent can do, because it'll make the same sort of mistakes that it will when you're chatting with it. So you need to be more specific, and you can put tighter guardrails around it. So I totally get that IT doesn't want to let AI agents loose, but you want to have humans in the loop for as much as possible, so that initially it's all humans, like you're doing the chat, and over time it's like going to the travel agent and go, look, you broadly know my preferences, but find some options for me and get back to me. And then again, like you're in the loop before the final decision's made. Only then can you make sure that the agents that you're using are fit for purpose. Okay, so we've come to the end. These are 3 things we covered around platforms, around jobs, fear of job loss, and about agents. Any last questions or comments that you'd like to share before we finish up? I'm going to share with you next my favorite quotation about AI. My favorite quotation about AI, and the principle that I think we should all be following when it comes to AI, comes from Professor Fei-Fei Li. So she's a real pioneer in AI, an absolute AI expert. She's been kind of in the leading edge of AI research for decades. She's not like one of these tech bros who's talking up AI to increase his stock price, but she's an absolute expert in AI. And she says that this point here, AI is made for us. The point of AI is that it's for us, to serve us and to help us be more human. And I reckon that's the way that we should be thinking about AI, not just now, but in the future as we're thinking about the evolution of AI. So my last message, which I often say, is don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't wait until you've got the next best platform. Don't wait until people talk to you about they're worried about whether they're losing their jobs or not. Don't wait until an agent goes rogue. Start now. Like, actually start working on these things now. Start before you're ready, because that's the only way that we can be ready to be using AI to be fit for the future.